We are live. Hey, everyone.
Hi.
Hello.
Trickling into the comments. Perfect. Okay, so I am Megan. I'm one of the co-owners of Fae Crate, and we have an amazing lineup of authors for you guys today talking about fantasy worlds. We have Annie Sullivan, the author of A Touch of Gold and Tiger Queen. We have Elizabeth Lim, who is the author of Spin the Dawn and Unravel the Dusk. And we have KayLynn Flanders, who is the author of Shielded. And we have some pretty amazing questions. Michelle, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Michelle, aka Very Book Pages on Instagram, and I'm your co-host for today.
Perfect. You want to just kick off, Michelle, with questions?
Absolutely. Let's get started. Could you guys give us a quick elevator pitch for your book?
Who wants to go first?
Okay. I can go.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so Spin the Dawn is it's most often pitched as Mulan meets Project Runway, but it's also like a little bit more in depth. It's about a young seamstress who has to sew the magical dresses of the sun, the moon, and the stars in order to save her kingdom.
I hadn't heard the Project Runway thing, and now I'm like,
oh, okay.
I was like, all right.
My publisher came up with that one, so
I love it.
I totally got the Project Runway vibes, and I was like, oh my god, I'm so excited. It's one of my favorite shows. So.
Oh yeah, I love it too. Yeah.
All right, who's next?
I can go. Oh, sorry. This is my awkward quarantine. I haven't talked to real people in months. All right. So my book is a fantasy, and it's basically when ancient mages escape their prisons and come after her family, Princess Janisara has to stay hidden, like hide her identity, and figure out how to use her magic that she's kept hidden in order to save everyone. So there's magic and sword fights and mystical forests. It's fun.
Those are my favorite keywords.
Yeah.
Annie?
All right. So I'm the author of A Touch of Gold. It's my first book. It's a fairy tale retelling about the cursed daughter of King Midas, who has magic gold powers and faces pirates and thieves on a quest to get her father's gold back when it gets stolen. And then my most recent book is a standalone called Tiger Queen, and it's about a warrior princess who fights suitors in an arena to win her right to rule.
Oh, I like a fighting woman.
Yeah.
Yes, she knows how to wield a sword, which I don't, so.
Quarantine habits to learn.
Right?
Okay, so our second question is, what would your main characters be doing during quarantine?
I can go for that one. So in Tiger Queen, my main characters, Kateri and Scion, like I said, she has to fight suitors in an arena to win her right to rule. So she would be training. She would be hitting it hard, like doing anything she could to just keep in shape and make sure that she wins that throne to keep a very evil person from winning it.
Meanwhile, I can't get off the couch.
Same. I haven't changed from pajamas in days. Like, I wish I was training.
Well, if I were them, I actually made the mistake of starting to run again. I haven't gone running in like 2 years. And I was like, oh, I'll just run for a few minutes. I ran for 45 minutes, you guys. And I could not walk the next day. So,
That'd probably be me.
Yeah, so I need to do some training or something. So
Don't put me down for the cardio.
yes.
All right, Elizabeth?
So in my book, Spin the Dawn, here it is. Spin the Dawn, Maya is a seamstress. So she actually spends most of her time indoors anyway. So she'd probably just be sewing and working on a new fabulous creation.
I love that.
I love it.
Make me something, please. All right, KayLynn?
All right. So I like how you guys held up your book. I'm going to hold up my book too. Yay. My main character, Janisara, is kind of a pro at quarantine. So she's been living most of her life in very social isolation and in that kind of situation. So she would handle it pretty well, I think. She'd do a lot of reading, a lot of exploring in her library, and also training with weaponry and just staying on top of those skills that she has.
I love that she has a library.
Oh yeah. So she reads.
They're showing us up. They're major showing us up. Okay, Michelle?
Okay, next question is, how was the idea of each of your fantasy worlds born, and how did you keep those ideas organized while creating these worlds?
Y'all hear? I know she glitched.
I don't know who wants to start. Oh, sorry.
Did y'all
I
hear?
can-
I know that
Did
she.
you guys hear me? Sorry, I was.
Yeah. Well, here I looked
Yeah.
at the question online, so I can answer it. So the question, was like, how do you come up with the idea of your fantasy world, and how do you keep it in your head, right? So Tiger Queen is actually based off of a short story called "The Lady or the Tiger." And if you have not read it, it's super short. It's like a couple paragraphs long. You can actually find it online. It's in free public domain. And it's about a warrior prince or a princess who falls in love with a peasant, and her dad's like, the king is like, that's not cool. You can't marry a peasant because you're the princess. So his form of justice is to throw this poor peasant boy into the arena, where behind one door is a beautiful lady, and behind the other door is a tiger. And if he picks the tiger, he gets eaten. If he picks the beautiful lady, he gets to go off and have a happy life, right? Well, spoiler alert, the princess finds out what's behind each door, and so her lover looks up to her in the arena, and he's like, help a guy out. Which one do I choose? And she points him toward a door. The door opens, and you never find out. You never find out she sent him to die or to send off, to this beautiful lady that she would never get to have him again. And so it's that's how I kind of like came up with this world, that like it's a very harsh place, and yet these people survive and thrive there. And there's a lot of really deadly creatures in Tiger Queen. There's like a thing called like a grieving spider, where if you get bitten by it, you're going to be grieving because you're going to die, like different things like that. So it's a very like harsh environment, very like fun environment. I love to create new creatures, new things. And like in A Touch of Gold, it's a Greek mythology kind of retelling, but I like to take Greek mythology and just kind of like give it a twist. Like you think but you don't, and just give that little kind of hint. And honestly, this is going to sound terrible, and I hope like no one else does this, because I don't keep notes really on my books. It's all up here. Like everything is just in here. So I just mull it over until I'm like, oh, that sounds like a cool world to build. Let's do it.
A panther.
I am a total pantster. Like,
That's amazing.
which is terrible when your publisher is like, hey, can you write us like a synopsis for the book that you haven't written? And I'm like, synopsis for a book that I haven't written, because I need to write the book. I can't. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. If my life isn't written down on paper, it doesn't get done. So
Same.
Maybe that's why I'm so stressed all the time, because it's all up here. And I'm like, okay, this.
Okay, perfect. Elizabeth?
I'd say that the world in Spin the Dawn was mostly born from like stories that I read and that my father told me when I was a kid. So he used to tell me a lot of fairy tales from around the world and folk tales and mythology, and I just loved them so much that it really forms the foundation for the world in Spin the Dawn. So the entire story itself is based off like a bunch of my favorite fairy tales, like Donkey Skin, which is a French fairy tale, which inspired the idea of having the 3 magical dresses. I think in the original fairy tale, it's the sun, the moon, and the sky. But in mine, it's the laughter of the sun, the tears of the moon, and the blood of stars. And the world itself is very heavily inspired by like East Asian mythology and folklore. So I wanted to blend those two. And that's how it came about. I do outline, but I'm also kind of, I feel like I'm a 60-40 outliner to pantser. So,
I've got enough to know where I'm going.
like I know where I'm going, but like there's room enough to sightsee.
My friend Lauren Mancy has like color-coded Post-it notes of like
Oh
every.
yeah, I can't do that.
And I'm like, no. Like if I have one piece of paper with some notes, like that's a lot.
All right, KayLynn?
So for my world, I like taking pieces of the world as like our world and sort of putting them into my book and making a world, like different pieces come from different places, of places that I've been or experiences that I've had, and just piecing them together that way. And then the way I like to keep, like, I have to write everything down. Like if it's not written on a piece of paper, it's gone in like 30 seconds flat. So I write everything down. I have a note section. I Draft and Scrivener. So I have like a whole resource section in there. And then I have one of those waterproof notepads in my shower so that I can write stuff down like as it comes, because that's like one of the only places that my brain is just like relaxed and off and like can't do anything. So ideas come a lot to when my brain's off like that. And then a section of notes on my phone that is I think the title of it is like nighttime notes to be added. And so like when I'm like falling asleep or like anytime I have like a random idea or thought about the world building or the characters or anything, I write it down there and then I transfer it into the main master document. Just because if I don't, like the ideas are lost. I'm kind of a scatterbrain that way.
I love that.
I love that notepad shower. Like that's brilliant. I think I'm gonna steal that.
It's on Amazon. It's super cheap. I love it.
I think Fae Crate needs to do that in a crate because I need one of those too. So.
Yeah, I need
That's
one
a good
too.
idea.
Write that down.
I won't write it down because clearly I don't take notes, but you're on that.
Well, you can remember it. Like no need, but I just forget everything. So
My husband used to have a habit of in the middle of the night, he would wake up and he would voice record things. And he would wake up because he'd forget he would like record his dreams. And then sometimes he told me he would wake up and he'd listen to it and he goes, I don't know what I was talking about. None of this makes sense. All right. So let's see here. What advice would you give yourself if you could go back in time when you first started your first book and your beginning of the whole author journey?
I'm like living it. Do you want me to answer first?
Sure.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay,
Go for it.
So Shielded is my first book, and so I'm experiencing everything for the first time. And I would probably say focus on the good things that happen, because there's a lot of good things, and it's really easy to focus on the negative, but like that doesn't get you anywhere. And don't let what you can't control stress you out, and only like, because there's so much that you can't control, and then don't try to do too much. Like just do what you can do, and that's good enough. Like you don't have to do all of the million things that everyone else on the internet is doing to like help promote your book or your stories or anything like that. So that's probably what I would tell myself.
That's such great advice.
Yeah. Spin the Dawn was probably the 7th or 8th book that I finished writing, like ever. So I've had my fair share of rejection, and I would say to just be persistent and to also be patient. Like, don't expect your first book to be published ever, and like don't think it's the book of your heart, because you can definitely have more. Your heart will grow as you write more books, and I think that's what I would probably tell myself back then.
Yeah, I would echo that. I would just say, don't give up, because it is such a hard business to get into. I mean, I think I got rejected by over 100 literary agents for my first book, and that didn't get me an agent. So then again, like Elizabeth, I had to write another book, and thankfully that got me an agent. But also surround yourself with people who will support you, because it's so easy to find the naysayers who will say, you can't do this. Why are you trying? You've been rejected 20, 30, 40 times. Like, why are you still doing this? And if you know you're meant to write, like, keep writing. It might be that 6th, 7th, 8th book, but you're going to get better and better the more and more you write. So just stay with it, honestly, because the ones who don't get published are the ones who give up.
That's beautiful advice. All of them. Like, great for writers. Next question is, in your opinion, what's one key aspect when crafting the world building?
I can start, okay. For me, the main thing that I always think about with a book is there magic or not? Because magic is kind of the end-all be-all for me in fantasy. Like, if there's a magical system, it has to be so airtight. Like, so in A Touch of Gold, Princess Cora, the daughter of King Midas, has some magical gold powers. And it's very hard to write a magic system and make sure that, like, if there's ever a moment where your character's being chased or is on the run or something, and they could easily use their power to, like, deflect something or defend themselves, and they don't, and they've grown up with that power, that's an automatic flaw in your book. Like, that is their go-to weapon, Then you also have to make it so structured that, like, they also there's enough tension, and the villain is strong enough to still challenge them even with that power. So it's kind of like little things like magic is my, like, okay, is there magic? How do people get magic? Who gave them that magic? Where did they get that magic to give it to them? So like, I start with magic and kind of like build outwards, I guess.
I like that. Okay. KayLynn?
Yeah, so I one aspect that I think is important that I have to like remind myself as I write is to make sure that your world and your world's problems affect the main character as directly as possible, just so that it feels like everything that you're seeing through your character's eyes. So you could have this whole like all of these details and all these really interesting things about your world and like all of these like conflicts happening in the background. But if it doesn't matter to your character, then it doesn't like matter to your story, right? So when you're building your world, focus on the things that are going to impact your character the most, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I would definitely echo that. I think having seeing the world through your character's eyes is one of the most important things in world building for me as well. And I feel that when I'm drafting, often in the first and second drafts, I often have really long info dumps about world building where I just like go into the most minute details of like clothing and religion and music. But all that later on becomes distilled into like 2 sentences. I think it's important for the author to know the world very well, but the reader doesn't need all those details, because if you're doing your job right, you should be able to feel the world in as few words as possible, just through what the characters are saying and doing, and how they're acting.
So true. Yes.
Okay. I always like this one. If you were placed in your leading character's shoes, would you survive your book's world or the tasks that they are set out to do?
Oh God, no.
Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Yeah, no, it's funny because somebody asked me this question very recently, and in the beginning of the book, Maya she's given a lot of choices at various points of the book, but in the very beginning, she's like given the call to action, like the call to go on the journey, and I think I don't, maybe I would have taken on the journey, but the next part, I probably would have been like, that's a little too much for me. I think I'm just going to stay at home. I definitely wouldn't have survived. I probably would have gotten killed at the first part possible.
I probably would have gotten there, been really excited, then met the other contestants and be like, you know what? I think I'm just gonna head out. It's fine. Okay.
Yeah, it's a big no from me too. I gave my main characters the qualities that I wish I had. So yeah, that's a big no for me. I don't think I could lift a sword, let alone like do some serious fighting with it. So
I would say for me, it's like 50-50. And a touch of gold, I think I might be able to. Just because Cora is a very soft character to begin with, and she has to find her strength. So I think if I kind of went through what she did, I'd be like, okay, I can kind of handle this. But Tiger Queen, if you're like a giant guy coming at me with a sword in the arena, or a tiger coming straight at me, it's like, I'm going to roll over and play dead, and that's not going to help anybody. Plus there's like scorpions, and like I said, there's like things called a grieving spider, and like all these, I'm like, I'm done.
I don't like a normal jumping spider. Don't bring me to a grieving spider.
I was very mean to those characters. They're like sand snakes that just like dart out of the sand and bite you. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I don't even want to set foot in that world. It's a dangerous place.
I think I would also, like, for all the books, I would just pretend dead and hope for the best.
Plus, sometimes I sword fight my nieces and nephews with like foam swords, and I'm like, oh, I'm so good. Here I am, a 30-something, and they're like 6, 6 and 5 or something. And I'm sword fighting them, and all of a sudden they're both taking me on, and I can't even defend 2 of them off with one foam sword. And I'm like, my characters are over here like fighting 2 guys at once, and I'm like, okay, whatever, guys.
Next question is, if you could travel to another fantasy world outside your own books, which one would it be and why?
KayLynn, do you want to start us? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead, KayLynn, go.
Okay. I would probably say Lord of the Rings, just because I read it when I was young, and it was a very formative time of my life. And I just remember it feeling so detailed, and there would be so many lands to explore and people and cultures. And it just feels like such a real living thing to me that that's probably the place that I would want to go visit.
Do you think you'd stay in the Shire, or would you venture out? Because I would die.
I would probably venture out, but like not Mordor, but like Rivendell, yeah.
Post-war? Are we like post-war?
Right. Okay.
I would enjoy the second breakfast.
That's where I want to go.
Second breakfast.
That's where it's
I would take the culture of the hobbits with me everywhere that I went. That's what I would do.
100%.
We're gonna be in the same place.
The world is going through such a troubling time right now that I would probably pick a place that's more a bit lighthearted, and like not too much war. I'm scared of orcs, so I probably wouldn't do Lord of the Rings. But so there was a series that I really loved when I was a teenager, and I think it was called Dealing with Dragons by Patricia Reed. And I just want to hang out with the dragons right now and like cook for them and like tell jokes, and that'd be my rest of quarantine.
I love that.
Well, I probably belong in like the Shire because I'm so short. And when I went to the film set in New Zealand, the size of the doors was like my height, and I was like, "Oh, sweet, I fit in here." But I would love Harry Potter, but I would have to have magic if I was going to be in that world. So I think the one I would go for is Caraval.
Ooh.
I love Caraval. Like just the idea of this like magical place where like there's a game and like, I don't know, count me in.
I wouldn't survive there either. I'm dying in a whole lot of places.
I don't know. I guess I'm adventurous. I've cage dived with sharks and stuff, like great whites. So like, I'm all for it. I'm like, let's do it. Let's play this game.
Maybe it's all about Legend. Like, I would love to hang out with him.
Legend, yeah.
I have like, yeah, a whole bunch of like posters and things of Legend. So, I'm just gonna keep that to myself.
Okay, so kind of touching on what Elizabeth was starting earlier, when creating a new world, those worlds come with their own lore, religions, mythology, and so on. How do you pace yourself in explaining a new world to readers without dumping information?
I do dump. But I dump it in the first draft, right?
Yeah,
so like Elizabeth
sure.
was saying, you get it all out on the page, and then as you go back, you can either break it up into smaller chunks and put the information where it's going to have the most impact, or you can like just show your character experiencing the world. So instead of saying like, oh, this is something that's cool about this world, just show them like traipsing through it or whatever. So I do dump at the beginning, and then it's just a matter of revising it out or revising it in better, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Want to go for it, Elizabeth?
I don't have too much to add to that. I would just say that, yeah, I have pages and pages and pages of just like world building notes that never see the light of day in the final draft. And I think with each draft that I do, it gets shorter and like more concise. And eventually, like I do mourn a lot of those darlings because I'm like, oh, that's so important that you know the color of her dress and like the texture and everything. But like I think in one of my most recent manuscripts, I had like a whole chapter about how my character bought a boat. and then I just cut it to like, oh, she bought a boat. And it just became like the first sentence of the new chapter. I was like, okay, that's all I need.
That's enough.
And sometimes there is a place for info dumping. So actually, A Touch of Gold has a prologue, which for maybe the readers and viewers out there right now don't know this, but a lot of agents actually hate books with prologues because they think if you have a prologue that you can't write backstory. And they think you're just info dumping right there at the beginning. So actually, when A Touch of Gold went out on submission to publishing houses to buy it, I had to take out the prologue. So it had no prologue. And then immediately, once it got a deal, the first thing my editor said was, this book needs a prologue. And I was like,
Nice.
It's got a prologue and no one wanted it.
What a great idea.
Right? I thought of that one. No. So sometimes like you can do a little bit of that if you need it. But I agree with, what KayLynn and Elizabeth said, like you can put it in there, but just really edit it back, because if your reader gets like overwhelmed, like, and they're not sensing the tension and what's driving them forward in the story, and you're just like, and there was a chandelier and it was made of skulls or whatever, like, it's cool, but they're getting lost, and you don't want to lose your reader.
I think a chandelier made out of skulls is pretty intriguing, though. You want to know more.
Well, so one of the villains, spoiler in A Touch of Gold, is Captain Skulls, and he collects the skulls of his villains. So he has a lot of very unique things.
Okay.
He's a twisted Gaston. He does all of his decorating in skulls. All right, Michelle.
Okay, next question is, when you create a whole new world, you can do whatever you want. So what's your favorite aspect of your own book's world? Like, what's your favorite thing you created?
I love writing new myths and reimagining fairy tales in my books and making them part of my own world and a bit of my own. That's been the most fun part in the Spin the Dawn series for me. I also really like writing about food.
I love that. Okay.
I love all the food descriptions and all the food descriptions in Spin the Dawn. I'm like, I'm hungry.
I think for me, I also really like writing retellings, but I want to take the stories that we know from childhood and kind of revamp them and make these characters have more agency, because so many of the original princesses, they don't do a whole lot often, and I think Disney's getting better and better about it themselves. But I love to say like, hey, Little Red Riding Hood, you don't have to stay on the path. Here's a sword. Go off the path and kill that wolf, because you are capable. You can do this. So I want to that's my favorite part, is like giving these women the power to do what they can. And there's this moment in A Touch of Gold, I think it's one of my favorite moments, where Princess Cora and actually her cousin Hetty, are the only ones who can kind of take down this threat that's coming. And so I love that these two women just kind of team up to do it. So that's one of my favorite things.
So in Shielded, there's the Wild, and it splits up these two neighboring kingdoms, and it's this really mystical forest that's slightly menacing. And I won't spoil anything, but that was really fun to write, to just almost give the setting and the actual world a really strong character and have a really big influence in the story. So that was kind of fun to be able to take this place that I had kind of imagined and taken from different experiences that I've had in my life, and sort of turn them a little bit menacing. So that was kind of fun.
I like that. Okay, so we're going to segue into individual questions for you guys. So, KayLynn, you're the first one that I have on the question. So that we've seen that you have a Spotify playlist for your book, which is so awesome. What type of music did you have on repeat while writing Shielded, and what other inspirations did you pull from to create the world of Hallendy? Oh, say it again.
Hallendy.
Okay.
Good. Yeah, so music is a big deal for me. I always have my earphones in when I'm writing, and it always has to be instrumental. I can't do anything with words, otherwise, I can't make my own words. I just listen to what's coming in. So it's really soundtracks usually to epic movies. I mean, there's a lot of Lord of the Rings, there's some Star Wars, there's Marvel movies, Wonder Woman. Oddly enough, my main villain, the soundtrack that I always played when I was writing him was the Amazing Spider-Man 2, the electro songs, which not really fantasy, but it was really caught his mood really well for me. And I would write down what songs were working for scenes and feelings, and that way it was just easy to maintain a mood, that feeling that the music creates. It was easier to write that as I was feeling it, to maintain it from the beginning to the end of a scene. So I do love music a lot, and my Spotify playlist is over on my website. And let's see here, what other inspirations? It really is just from things that I've places that I've been and things that I've experienced. So when she's traveling through the wild, I went on a hike with my brother and sister-in-law to the Big Four ice caves up in Washington State, and as I was walking there. Like, it was just this amazing, it was like this mystical forest that I was walking through. So it made it really easy to like bring those feelings into my book.
That's awesome. What was the name of the caves? You said the ice caves?
They're called the Big Four Ice Caves. It's up by like Snoqualmie,
Mm-hmm.
up in Washington, in the Cascades. It's
That sounds
very
like
gorgeous.
an epic time.
It's
Yeah.
I completely stole the playlist because it was so great, and I love that you
So
have
good.
Jane Eyre in there.
Oh, yeah.
One of my favorite movies.
Yeah, I'm kind of eclectic listening to music, but Jane Eyre is fantastic.
This question is for Annie. How was creating the world for A Touch of Gold different from Tiger Queen? And how did you go about separating the worlds in your head while switching between the books?
Yeah, I think it's so hard to kind of separate them out sometimes. I have to make sure I'm right about the right characters in the right place. But thankfully, there's such different settings that made it a little easier. But, you know, just coming up with the world of A Touch of Gold, I started with the Greek myth inspiration of King Midas. And then I said, like, what else? What else can I add? What else is there, you know? And I think one of the things, I guess, so, like, I'm a forgotten middle child, but I'm also, like, more than a forgotten middle child because I'm actually one of 4 kids, so I have to, like, share being the middle child. So, like,
You don't even get that.
everyone else and all my siblings are doctors and lawyers. So, like, then there's me. Okay, my parents actually, they love me. Thank you very much. But, you know, so, like, I think one of the things I wanted to focus on in A Touch of Gold is this character who's so forgotten in the original myth. You know, I mean, she's King Midas's daughter, but she, in the original myth, she's just a means to an end. She's just so that King Midas can discover, like, oh yeah, I should not have asked for the power to turn things to gold. So I really wanted to explore her story because being turned to gold by your father, like, that's going to leave some lasting side effects. So I think it was a little easier because that one has the magic in it, that kind of magic side of it, and like Greek gods and sirens and pirates. So it's a very, I guess it's actually like weird. So one's like a super water story and the other one is set in a very dry desert. And oddly enough, I wrote a good chunk of Tiger Queen when I was in Antarctica, of all places, which is one of the largest deserts in the world because it's so dry. And when I would go out and like walk there, I would just replace the stinging snow and the snow blindness with sand, you know, and like how that must feel. And so that's kind of like, I guess one thing that helped me separate it was like, you know, kind of like KayLynn was talking about, like going and experiencing different things is really what drives a lot of these worlds that I build. So I think in that respect, it was slightly easier to keep them apart because one is like a super high seas adventure and one is a town with no water. So.
And you really made it hard on the Tiger Queen people. Like, you must have hated them.
No, they have no water and like they're not allowed to leave because if they can't have enough water to cross the desert. So they're all stuck there and now there's all these horrible creatures. And if the princess loses the fights in the arena, a really terrible person will take the throne. So
Wow.
like
Okay, so let's see. Elizabeth. There is an entire system of lore and mythology in the world of Spin the Dawn, and Maya is faced with very unique and impossible tasks. So where was the idea for magic scissors and the huge tasks born from?
So as I mentioned earlier, I love fairy tales and mythology, and but going back, I guess, to the scissors and Maya's background, my grandmother was a seamstress when she first came to this country. She was a seamstress for like 40 years. And so I would grow up like on her lap at the sewing machine, like watching her sew for work. And as I was trying to think of a new idea for a new book, I was like, you know, I haven't really read very many books about seamstresses, and I really like writing about fashion. So that was one of the ideas that stayed with me as I thought about writing a new book. And I also thought of some of my favorite fairy tales, as I mentioned, Donkey Skin, which had the 3 dresses of the sun and the moon and the sky. But I also remembered, I just like thinking about my childhood a lot. So this is going to be me rambling about that a bit. But one of my favorite movies when I was a kid was called The Polar Bear King. And it's it's a retelling of East of the Sun, which is about kind of like Beauty and the Beast, except with a polar bear. And then there's trolls at the end because it's like a Norwegian fairy tale. But one of the magical items that the princess gets towards the very end of the fairy tale are these magic scissors. And she uses them because she has to make a wedding dress for the troll queen who's taken her husband and wants to marry him. But anyway, I won't get into that. And so I remembered those scissors and how cool they were. They were a very short part of the fairy tale, but I remembered them because I was like, I personally am not great at sewing, unlike my grandmother. But how cool would it be to have these scissors that can just make these magical garments? And that became the focal point for Spin the Dawn, and that's kind of how it was born.
Perfect. I love that so much. I love how much of your family you have in your books.
Thanks.
I want to know if Elizabeth's going to start her own fashion line. Like,
no. I don't have the skills for that. It's a lot easier to write about them in words than actually like design and sew them in person.
Do you watch a lot of Project Runway? Do that, like...
I watched a lot in college, but not too much recently. Yeah, okay. I don't even know what season they're on. It must be like 20 or something.
It's on like it's online. There's like a new one, like Making the Cut or something.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
So you could like get some magic scissors, go on that one.
You would like, win for sure.
Okay, Michelle.
This is for KayLynn in Shielded. We are introduced to a princess who was born with something she wasn't supposed to, which leads to a life of hiding herself and doing what's best for her kingdom, including an arranged marriage. How did you go about creating the internal drive and conflict for Janissaria to protect a kingdom she was afraid would condemn her for being herself?
I'm sorry for throwing that one, but I was like, look, there are so many characters that you see in the YA world that have to deal, like they're saving and protecting places that don't really support them. And I'm like, I need an author to answer. How do you get that?
Well, I mean, I can't answer for all authors. I'll answer for me. I feel like it was really important for Jenna to have a really good, like a really strong foundation. I feel like the relationship that she has with her brother, especially, and even with her dad, it's a really foundational core strength that she has. Like, she knows how to love people and she knows what it's like to be loved. And there's this big uncertainty because she has magic and she's not supposed to. So she does hide a lot of herself out of self-preservation. But that relationship that she has with her family is something that really is a core principle of who she is. And then as she journeys along in the story, like literally, but also in the story with her arc, she is able to expand those core relationships. She's able to expand it a little bit farther and a little bit farther and a little bit farther until she's ready to like step up and do her best to save everyone. Does that make sense? Like, is that a good enough answer? I was like, this is a great question, but.
Well, I do like that. If she was, had those people making comments and stuff, but if she didn't have her family, I could see it being like.
It would be very different.
Not very good.
Yeah, she wouldn't care about anybody or anything. But because
marriage, please.
Right. She just like whatever. But because it's her brother and he loves her and she loves him and he's going to be the king. Like she's there to support him however she can. At the beginning anyway. Then stuff happens.
Okay, Annie, when writing a retelling, how did you balance keeping details from the original myth and bring your own ideas of the world to the front in a fresh new way?
Yeah, I think kind of how I mentioned before, like I just love looking at those forgotten characters. So I'm working on a couple different retellings right now. Can't say anything about them yet. But I love taking a character and just giving them something different, like in A Touch of Gold, I take the Greek mythology and then I amp it up a bit. And the sequel to A Touch of Gold, A Curse of Gold, is coming out in September. And I play with a lot of different elements of Greek mythology in there that like it's based on the original myths. Like it's all there. I just take it and amp it up a bit, and kind of enjoy just playing with it. And so you think these characters, these creatures, these gods, and there's just a different side to them. So that's kind of what I love about it, is kind of that way to just play with it and come up with new ideas, so that it's grounded in the original and pays homage to it in a way, but then expands on it so that readers have something new to explore and experience that they weren't quite expecting.
I love that.
Love it. Oh,
Michelle?
and the next question is for Elizabeth. Did you put some of your personal experiences into Spin the Dawn when creating the characters and the world building? And also, can you give us a hint of how we will be left at the end of Unravel the Dusk, which we desperately need?
Yeah, so for Spin the Dawn, oh, I'm sorry, what did you say?
You can be a very cool person. So
in Spin the Dawn, the protagonist is Maya, and she's the seamstress who makes the magical dresses. And when I first created her, there definitely was a lot of me in her. She's a lot braver and more talented than I am, for sure. But it was really important to me to write a protagonist who her journey is like, it's rewarded by hard work and effort rather than like being a chosen one. So she's a seamstress, and my training actually is in music. So I kind of thought of myself as a craftsperson for a long time. Like I would spend hours and hours writing music and practicing piano. And I likened that in a way to Maya's upbringing and just like sewing and creating beautiful garments, dresses. And another big part of Maya's background is being, she's in the very beginning, like she has to dress up as her brother because women are not allowed to become tailors in this world. Like they're not allowed to have recognition as a designer on their own. They can only be seamstresses. And when I was trying to become a film composer, it's funny, KayLynn, that you love listening to so much cinematic music. My past life was in film music, and it's actually really hard to break in as a woman. And when I was in school, I had multiple people tell me that there was no chance I would make it simply because I was a girl. And that really stuck with me. Even as I was writing Spin the Dawn. So in the beginning, like you have this minister telling her, oh, there's no way like you'll get anywhere because you're a girl. And you can't even go to the palace to participate in this competition. So that's where some of Maya's determination and fierceness comes from. And it was really fun to write and very personal. As for the ending of Unravel the Dusk, I don't know what I can leave you with. I want to say you'll be devastated or satisfied. I don't know. Like you just have to, you have to read it. Sorry.
I have had the arc, and I have actually been terrified of reading it. I'm like, I don't know how to deal with this.
I actually read it already, and I was really satisfied. So
okay, good. I'm glad.
Which could mean anything. Okay, so with that scary note of not knowing if we'll be devastated or satisfied, let's move into the last piece of this. We're going to do a lightning round for you guys, and we'll do it based off of the order that we're on the camera. I keep forgetting that we're reflected in the camera. So we'll do Annie, Elizabeth, and KayLynn.
Okay.
So
I'm ready.
First question. Would you rather have magic and be hunted, or live in a world where everyone has magic except for you?
Have magic and be hunted. I could
All
take it. Maybe, unless they have swords.
I feel like this choice just kind of sucks on both ends. I don't like either one, but I guess I would choose have magic. Everyone have magic except me, because I really don't think I do very well being hunted. So just like to survive.
I would choose have magic and be hunted. I already know what it feels like not to have magic. Let's do this thing. Let's get in there.
Right? I'm with you. Like I would there's no way I'm letting everyone else have magic except me. Like that's just that's not cool.
Have you guys read A Spell for Chameleon? By Piers Anthony? It's a pretty old book. That's the basis of the plot. Everyone in the world has magic except him. And it's pretty cool.
I would probably be so mad. But
I
you
would
know,
be so jealous too.
I mean, it sucks. Like it grows up, when he grows up, the main character grows up, he's very left out and like made fun of and everything, but he finds his own way.
Yeah, I feel like I'd be too whiny without magic. I'd be like, can you just get someone to like, can you get a magical broom to like wipe up that mess, you know? Like, can you do that? I can't do it. I don't have magic, you know?
it would probably end up just like our world. It would be monetized. You'd pay for the service of having someone having magical brooms.
Yeah,
I have
that's
no
true.
money left.
Okay, so bookmark or dog ear?
Bookmark, 100%.
Bookmark.
KayLynn?
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear Elizabeth. Bookmark for sure.
Oh man, I feel like a trash goblin. I'm like if there's a receipt next to me, it goes in there. If there's like a birthday card, it goes in there.
Oh, wait, does it have to be like a real bookmark? Like I use like pieces of toilet paper or like a Kleenex. Just shove a Kleenex in there. I mean, clean. Come on. But yeah.
I can say that I've committed the crime of folding corners, but I've switched a lot to ebook reading a lot, and because I've gotten to where I used to read like in the bathtub a lot, but even now I'm like it could fall in the bathtub. Where's an ebook? It's fine. I can't ruin it. So now they're like pristine condition, but don't get moved. All right, coffee or tea?
Tea. I don't drink
Tea. Tea for me.
Hot chocolate. Can I have that be an option?
Yeah.
I'm a sweet girl. Sweet all the way.
Ooh, you have to let us know what type of tea. What type of tea? Because I love black tea.
Oh, I love black tea, like English breakfast tea, monkey picked oolong tea, lemon ginger, peach ginger. Like, we'll just be here for another hour as I list off all the types of tea I drink. A lot of tea.
I'm pretty seasonal. In the fall and winter, I really like the hot cinnamon spice tea by Harney and Sons. Right now, though, I'm on like a passion fruit green tea kick, so it's a bit like getting into springtime and summer.
I think
you can just tell I'm a southern U.S. person because mine is just sweet iced tea. Not a coffee drinker, but I will go through a gallon of sweet tea, which is really sad because with quarantine, like no store has sweet tea because we have all bought it all out. It's all gone. So I've been dying.
That's really sad.
Okay, here's another hard one. Unlimited new books to read, but never reread a book that you've already read, or allowed to reread, but never allowed to have a new book.
Unlimited new books. I very rarely, like I could probably name on like one hand the amount of books I've reread ever.
Same here. Yeah, unlimited new books to read for me.
I am a big rereader, but I would choose unlimited new books as well, just because I have faith that people will keep writing good books that are like good.
Yes.
Perfect. All right, and our last one. If you could choose between your book becoming a movie or a TV series, which would you choose and why?
I think A Touch of Gold, I would love movie or TV series. Tiger Queen, I think, would be better as a movie just because it's a standalone. So.
Spin the Dawn's a duology, so I would love a TV series, I guess. But honestly, I'd be happy with anything. Like,
I feel like it could be cool, like this show ending like on who won the task and things like that. Like,
yeah. It's like a little bit reality show in the beginning. So
That'd be way cool. I would probably pick TV series just because I think it would be fun to see. Like I'm thinking about shows like The Mandalorian or like even like the Tangled series that where like you get to see the characters like engage in the world and like go on new adventures. So I feel like that would be kind of fun to see their adventures continue.
Why not both? You know, they make a movie and then they turn it into TV. How would we do that?
Both is good.
Both is good.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining us and talking about your books. For everyone watching, we will be posting this on YouTube because we know that there's a lot of time zones that get to miss out on our lives. We also have a lot of giveaways going on. We have some arcs at Fae Crate and some of the authors are giving away. So any of our social media, you'll find something. We also have links for how to buy all of the authors' books, where to find the pre-orders. Their websites and everything is on our Facebook page, and we'll have swipe up options on Instagram as well. So you have all of the information in one place. But thank you guys so much for being a part of this and taking time out of your day to come and talk with us. It's been amazing learning
Thank
about
you for having us.
Yeah, thank
you.
you. It's been fun.
But y'all enjoy the rest of your day, and thank everyone who watched and all of your comments. We have a lot of people saying thank you and that they loved y'all. So I hope you have a wonderful day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.